Ladies and gentlemen, I call the January 14th meeting of the Smithfield Planning Commission to order. If you would join me, stand and join me for pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First, before we do elections, I'd like to welcome Mr. Cutler to our auspicious body.
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate your earnestness, sir.
I'm happy to be here.
Mr. Riddick, I believe you guide us through our election process?
Yes. Members of the Planning Commission, you have a new Planning Commission. This is your organizational meeting, and the first order of business is the election of a chairman. So the floor is open for nominations for chairman of the Planning Commission.
I'd like to nominate Julie Hilligas to remain as chairperson.
Second.
Ms. Hilligas has been nominated and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the floor is closed. All those in favor of the election of Ms. Hilligas as chairman say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Ms. Hilligas, you've been reelected.
Thank you.
The next order of business is election of a vice chair. The floor is open for nominations.
Still like to nominate Mr. Davidson to remain as vice chair.
Second. There's been a nomination for Bill Davidson as vice chairman and a second. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Gigi Smith.
Gigi Smith.
I would like to withdraw my name due to health concerns.
All right. Ms. Smith has been nominated. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Dr. Polk.
I would like to withdraw. I just like being in the peanut gallery.
I keep trying.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing
Come
none,
on,
the floor is
everybody take a
closed. All those in favor of the election of Virginia Smith as the vice chairman say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ms. Smith, you've been elected again. I wonder how many times this has been. It's been,
Well, last time I was actually chair,
okay.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to this time around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Our next item of business is closed session for consultation with legal counsel concerning potential litigation.
Madam Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, we need to go into a closed session for the purpose of a consultation with legal counsel and staff as to actual or probable litigation pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia. Need a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This won't take very long. Chairman, we need a motion to go back into open session.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we go back into open session.
And I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair, vote. All those in favor say aye.
We did that already.
Okay. We need a motion that during the closed session, there was only a consultation with legal counsel and staff as to actual or probable litigation pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Next up on our agenda is the Community Development and Planning Director's report. Ms. Clary, what say you?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. This is just a reminder, Tuesday, February 25th at 6:30 p.m., there will be a joint Town Council and Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.
What time is that again? Sorry?
6:30 p.m. here at the center.
And that was February 25th.
February 25th. Everybody get that? February 25th, 6:30. Joint work session. I would be remiss if I didn't remind you all, for Leslie, if you have not turned in your disclosure form, please get that to her as soon as possible.
Yep.
Okay, upcoming meetings and activities. Next Tuesday, we have the Board of Historic and Architectural Review meeting, also Board of Zoning Appeals. Hey, they're actually going to meet? Excellent.
It's
And then,
organizational meeting.
oh,
We do have an
We
application.
do?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's following Lot 99 on Smithfield
Okay.
Boulevard.
very good. Tuesday, February 4th, we have Town Council meeting. Tuesday, February 11th, we reconvene the Planning Commission, and Tuesday, the 25th, again, is our joint Planning Commission and Town Council meeting. Love to see you all there. Item number 5, public comments. Public is invited to speak to the Planning Commission on any matters except scheduled public hearings. Please use the sign-up sheets provided. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Any required responses from the town will be provided in writing following the meeting. So if you want to sign up to speak for any of the items in a public hearing, be sure you get on that sheet. But if you have any general comments, we will take those now. Do we have anyone signed up? Anybody change your mind and just feel a burst of something you really want to say? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move along. Next item is Planning Commission comments. Anybody have anything they want to share? Yes, sir. Mr. Cutler.
Well, I'd like to start by thanking the mayor for appointing me to the Planning Commission. It's an honor to be appointed here. I'd also like to thank you in advance for sharing your wisdom with me. Members of the Planning Commission, you've been here, and as I listened to, thinking back to who somebody's property was, remembrance of who those folks were, and things such as that. So you have much greater wisdom on the area than I do, as well as Ms. Clary and your staff. I look forward to your assistance and guidance to help me as the new guy, if you will. Help the commission make good decisions. In addition to that, new eyes bring new perspective. So what I'm bringing with that perspective is the will of the voters. As you know, I was newly elected, and I spent many days out at the polls. I spent the full election day at both polls, split, half a day at each, and I talked to, I would dare say, thousands of citizens. Growth management was a major theme of that, and particularly residential growth, which is where a lot of our decision-making or recommendations lie. So I feel a commission here to help manage the growth and change the culture of the way that we approach residential growth, particularly in the town. And a couple elements of that. One, some elements of statements of the nature of we owe an answer to the developer on this, when in fact we have 100 days to make a decision, and even that 100 days can be extended with the agreement of the developer. So I think that perspective of the citizens is often, perhaps more so with the council than the planning commission, but that they would speak and the voting members or decision makers would make a decision without referencing the concerns of the citizens. And I think there was in recent meetings, there was some recognized change and even discussion of having more discussion in this forum. But I do think that when there are one or more members that have questions about something that has come before the commission, that it's more than appropriate to table that item and seek resolution to the fullest extent of that member's concerns rather than pushing a vote. Additionally, if you follow the election and particularly my statements, whether it was in the forum or in the newspaper, across the board special use permits, and I know they have a mixed reception here. I think there's some that see it as a tool in which the town can control things, which I agree with, and we have a number of elements of that tonight. But as opposed to, a recent development, for example, that was proposed, and we give a special use permit that grants exception across the entire breadth of the development and allows not just one home or two homes to be contrary to our zoning, but 130 or 812 homes be contrary to our zoning. And I think that those types of actions, may have been what led to some dissatisfaction of the voters. So I think that our zoning laws and rules are written to protect the character and nature of the zoning area in which they exist, and we should be particularly judicious about giving across the board special use permits in the future. And finally, I did notice at the conclusion of the last meeting, some dissatisfaction, particularly from quite vocally from Dr. Pope about the roundabout, and I supported your position on that. Of course, I was not a town council member at the time, but so I would say that your dissatisfaction with that was warranted, and particularly working with a town council member on the commission to come to a recommendation that you feel best suits the town and that is supported by the council member. Then when it gets to the council, it's not. It may be disheartening, I would think. That being said, we may not always see eye to eye in position as a council member versus planning commission, but I will do my best to, if I disagree, perhaps the commission is going to recommend approval on something I intend to most likely vote against. I will try to be fully transparent and honest with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler. Other planning commission comments?
The only thing I'll say to that is we hear a lot of vocal stuff that goes on here, but there's also a lot of unspoken vocal things that go on, and I catch a lot of that in my office, that people that are not willing to publicly speak because of being chastised, singled out, canceled, whatever the right word is, but there's always two perspectives, and that always weighs in on my decisions because I hear both sides of it, and I hear it from residential as well as business owners around the community. So, there may be stuff that I can't say publicly, but there's stuff that I know in confidence that I will carry forward without name. But there are lots of reasons there's lots of decisions of why we move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Pope. Okay, next item, entrance corridor overlay review, Jersey Park Apartments rehab project, Chase Palace applicant. Do we have anyone here for the applications? Yes. Oh, yeah, let's do staff report with that.
Yes, thank you. The applicant is beginning the process of commencing renovations to the Jersey Park apartment complex. There will be 11 buildings that will be updated with two-tone vinyl siding between granite and steel blue with white accessories. There'll be new front doors painted black fox, a new architectural shingle roof and colonial slate, along with entry doors featuring covered roofs, white vinyl sliding windows, sconces and new building numbers, and then the office garage door will be painted white. There will be additional site work, including mill and overlaying the parking lot, new accessible parking spaces, striping, handicap and van accessible parking signage and parking spaces, access ramps, sidewalks, aprons and a dumpster pad, replacing the existing dumpster surroundings with new vinyl, new landscaping at the building in the community center, pruning the existing trees, removing the existing basketball court, and providing an accessible playground, gazebo, and benches. Town do support this application with the condition that the applicant completes a zoning permit application and fee payment. Thank you.
Great, thank you. You would state your name and address for the record, please.
Yep. Hey, good evening. My name is Chase Powell. I'm the Director of Development at Green Street Housing. Our address is 212 East Main Street, Suite 200. That's in Salisbury, Maryland, 21801. So thank you all for having us tonight. So Green Street Housing, we are a owner and developer of affordable properties across the Mid-Atlantic. We've completed now, I believe, 27 developments in our 15-year history. That's 1,000 units that we've either built or redeveloped. We've got another 1,000 in our pipeline. This is what we do. We specialize in the redevelopment or the creation of affordable housing. Jersey Park, we obviously are going to renovate the property. That's our intent. To do so, we're using financing from Virginia Housing's low-income housing tax credit program, as well as loans through their tax-exempt bond program. We also have some loans from Virginia DHCD. The scope of the rehab is pretty significant. We're spending about $105,000 per residential unit. That includes the site work. As Tammy just outlined, for all intents and purposes, the property is going to function the same. We're not adding any new structures. We're not expanding anything, but it's going to be very much in-kind replacement across the board. Obviously, newer finishes on the exterior, new finishes on the interior of the apartments, overhaul of all the fixtures, that sort of thing. So it's a $8.4 million construction contract. It's a pretty major investment into the property. We're at the point now where we intend to close on our financing in April of this year, and the hope is that we'd be starting construction in May, and we'd be under construction for about 15 months. That's the main shape of things. Tammy covered a lot of what we intend to do with the property. For those of you that don't know, it's 80 residential units. There's 64 two-bedroom units, 16 one-bedroom units. And to clarify, Jersey Park, if you're going in on Wren Road, is the property on the right. Woods Edge, which is the property on the left. We are pursuing to get under contract with the owner of that property to eventually renovate that as well. And the hope would be that we would do that after we complete Jersey Park. So this evening, virtually, I'm joined by Carrie Thomas, who is our architect with Minor Feinstein Architects, and then Jason Wilkins, who is our civil engineer with Towns Engineering. So any additional questions around the design or the site, they can answer. I'm also joined by Mr. Matt Auke, who's our Director of Design and Construction, and then our CFO, Charlie Moore, is here as well. So we can speak to any questions you might have about the project or timeline. Then just as an additional note, look, I've been to many municipalities. I've been to many small towns to talk about my project, and I just want to say, the Smithfield at large, you have all been very welcoming, and it's been very receptive to what we're trying to do, and it's very energizing to have a municipality that has been behind us and has been supportive, as you all have so far. So I tip my hat to all of you, and I'm looking forward to working with you through this project and the next one, and really turn this community around. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or direct accordingly to my colleagues online.
Okay. Any questions?
I have two, Mr. Powell.
Yep.
When you finish this renovation, would you be requalifying the occupants?
Yes. Yeah. So the residents who are at the property now, they will have to income certify under the new income requirements. So Jersey Park was actually renovated through the low-income housing tax credit program in 2006. So it has an existing what is called a LURA, which is a low-income use restriction agreement. So those residents will have to recertify. Now, the difference is we are going to be bringing in a new management agent to the property. So we thought as part of the effort to rebrand and kind of refresh the property, part of that is changing the management company. So we'll be coming in with a more rigorous standard as to who still qualifies to live at Jersey Park.
Thank you. Second question. I'm pretty pleased with what you all are doing, attempting to do here. But with with our entrance card overlay in mind, when you select the colors, the dumpster, there's one dumpster right there that when you first go in.
Yep.
I'm hoping you can find colors, I don't expect you to move it, but find colors where it will blend in and it doesn't stand out as some signature structure when you first enter that complex.
Sure.
You can find some colors that would blend in. That would
Yeah,
be appreciated.
well, I'll take that into consideration. I agree with you. It's, you know, it's not ideal to be driving in and that's the first thing you see. But we'll endeavor to blend it into the community a little bit more cohesively.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, on that note, do you all have choice of colors for a dumpster? Or is that designated by the dumpster company?
We can definitely choose the colors of the enclosure, for sure.
Right.
The dumpster, you raise a good point. We might be able to pick amongst options, but short of buying a dumpster, you know, I don't know if I can control the color. I mean, I think what we should explore after walking away from this meeting is there a way to either, you know, reorient or reposition the dumpster where it is, maybe to just make it as, you know, like, as you're driving by, so you're not seeing the dumpster, you know what I mean? So, and like, this is not me here as a developer committing to anything, but what I'm saying is I hear your feedback and we'll explore it, you know.
Okay. And according to what I could see on the plan, there are 2 dumpsters, correct?
Yes,
And that's what's currently there?
yes.
And they're going to be in the same place?
To my knowledge, yes, yeah.
Okay. So apparently 2 dumpsters is working where they are for the size of the neighborhood?
Yeah, I've gotten no report from the existing property manager that there's any problem with trash or overflow or anything like that, so.
Okay, maybe in my mind it is.
Okay.
The other thing was, you're going to remove the basketball court and rehab the playground and with some benches and all, but you're not going to put a basketball court back?
That's correct.
Is there a reason for that? Is there a problem with a basketball court? I mean, I know a lot of teenagers like to play.
I mean, my perception, just from being on site multiple times, is the one issue is just the current condition of the court. But, I mean, we generally just come into properties and prefer to put in playgrounds, you know, so.
Again, just a question in my
Yeah.
mind. Oh, sorry. Timeline, what is the timeline?
Yeah, so right now, you know, we have a permit set of drawings at the ready that's been submitted to Isle of Wight County and obviously also, you know, submitted to Smithfield. Those same drawings have also been reviewed through the first round of plan and cost review by Virginia Housing. They have an internal plan review process as part of their financing. So, you know, we thread the needle, everything goes okay. The intent is that we would close on our financing and submit a notice to proceed to our contractor in April, and then we'd start construction in May. We'd be under construction for 15 months.
Thank you.
Is it a building at a time and rotating residents through different?
Yes, yeah, so the phasing plan right now is that we'll do 2 buildings at a time. We will totally empty those buildings. Our scope of work is such that we would not be able to do it with tenants in place, right? So we'll totally empty 2 buildings. Those residents will be relocated on site, so nobody has to move off site, nobody has to, you know, be upended from their lives. We complete those 2 buildings, we move people in, we certify those units, and then we move on to the next 2 buildings. So obviously then when we get to the last 2 buildings, we'll be leasing those up to new residents or to folks off of the wait list. Yeah.
With that strategy, what is your vacancy rate presently?
So we actually negotiated holding a vacancy rate of 20% of the property or 16 units, specifically so that we would have the vacancy for the rehab. But I can tell you that the wait list is robust. So in the absence of that artificial vacancy, the property would be full, no question about it.
Thank you.
If the residents requalify, will there be any change to their cost?
So the property is assisted by a housing assistance payment contract through HUD, a HAP contract. So the residents who live at Jersey Park will pay no more than 30% of their income, no matter what. right? So even though, you know, the underwriting changes and the max rent might go up, their contribution to that rent will remain 30% of whatever their qualified income is.
Thank you.
Other questions? Do I have a motion?
Actually, I have one more question.
Okay.
I don't see it on here, and perhaps it's not in the scope of your work, but are there any enhancements to security of the property being considered?
Yes. Yeah. So we are evaluating a few different vendors. We're looking at a few different things. So number one, access control. You know, the ability to, whether it be through fobs or controlling who can enter common spaces and the units. We're also evaluating it's called like a continuous monitoring service, more or less. So we do security cameras at all of our properties, right? So, you know, we're going to expand the security camera coverage. Another thing we'll be doing is enhancing site lighting as well. So Virginia housing actually requires 1 candle per foot. I believe that's the metric. So, you know, between wall packs and enhanced site lighting, so the site will be brighter. But what we're evaluating are these companies that more or less actually monitor the property on whether it's 12 hours a day, 24 hours a day. And we can set criterion around, you know, if like 5 or 6 people group together for more than 4 minutes after like 7 p.m. That can trigger a notification to, you know, the respective authorities, or there can be a siren that blares or that sort of thing. We haven't secured a vendor for that yet, but that's an avenue we've been looking down. So yeah, we are exploring the security package for sure. You know, I've been involved in the property long enough, and I've done enough research to know that there is an ongoing, you know, crime and security concern there. But that first and foremost is what we're evaluating and considering as part of the renovation. You know, I think the renovation here, it's not only a physical thing, right? I mean, bringing in a new management company is also part of like kind of refreshing the spirit of the place. And then we'll be rebranding the property as well. So it will eventually operate under another name. So,
You mean it would no longer be Jersey Park?
that's correct.
Anything else for the applicants?
I'll make a motion, if I may,
You quote.
that we make a favorable recommendation to town council with the conditions as laid out by staff. The applicant completes the zoning permit application and the fee payments.
This would be approval of entrance corridor overlay review. It's up to the planning commission.
Now, this doesn't go to the town council at all.
No, sir. It's
Okay.
just the entrance corridor, the elevations, the colors, and materials.
No, okay. Then I'll make a recommendation that we accept the application as presented with staff conditions.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 8 is public hearing, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Exception, Lot 99, Smithfield Boulevard, John and Cindy Doyle, the applicants. Ms. Clary, you have staff report, please.
Yes, thank you. The applicant wishes to obtain a Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area exception in accordance with the Smithfield zoning ordinance, Article 3P, Section I-4. This would be to construct a new single-family dwelling on a pre-Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area lot. We believe that the lot was recorded about March 2nd, 1978, which predated the 1989. The zoning ordinance does permit encroachments into the buffer area provided that the single-family dwelling meets the 4 proposed conditions. The proposed single-family dwelling will encroach approximately 1,500 square feet into the landward 50-foot of the 100-foot RPA buffer. To help lessen the impact to the RPA buffer, the applicant will also be requesting a special yard exception from the BZA in order to encroach in the 35-foot front yard setback. This would provide a front yard setback of not less than 20 feet. Any additional disturbance caused by the construction of the dwelling would require appropriate mitigation with natural plantings for the RPA restoration. A landscape mitigation plan that complies with the required landscaping will be required. Town staff do support this application with the suggestion that the applicant constructs a single-family dwelling in the footprint that does the least amount of disturbance within the 100-foot RPA as possible, and the applicant is required to comply with the landscaping mitigation requirements. Additionally, we suggest that any approvals are contingent on the applicant obtaining the front yard exception from the BZA. The strengths of this application is the RPA buffer area would result in the loss of a buildable area on a lot recorded prior to October 1989. The weakness is that the approval of this application would result in development and disturbance within the 50-foot landward side of the RPA buffer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing item, so we will officially open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on this application? We don't have anyone. Anyone here feel moved to speak about this particular application? Yes, sir. Step up, state your name and address for the record, please.
I just have one, I'm here for another reason, but I do have one question about this. I think we own the piece of property across the
State your
creek.
name and address for the
Frank
record.
Garrett Edwards, 12450 Nike Park Road. And I believe Air Farm sits across from this piece of property. The only question I have for the town is, there's been a number of docks that have been built on this small creek behind Air Farm. If those docks started to get into disrepair, or there are boats back there that are not being taken care of that affect the creek, is that a town concern or a Chesapeake Bay concern, or do we know?
They're permitted by the Virginia Marine Resources Commission.
Okay.
They're the ones who issue permits on docks.
The creek back there is not as wide as from here to you and to me, and we don't have a problem with it. And again, I don't have a problem with this house. I'm familiar with this lot. We actually looked at it. But that is my question, is that Smithfield, there are, with the waterways, is very much a beautiful part of the town, but some of these docks and things that are starting to get in disrepair, especially on those really small areas where you can't really get a boat in unless it's high tide. But just a question about that. But again, we have no problem about this house. If it makes a difference, we're perfectly fine, because this lot's been there for a long time, so.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
sir. Sure.
Just for clarification, Isle of Wight County is the one that issues the building permit for the docks. So if there is some issue, if you contact us, we can reach out to the county and let them know.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is officially closed. Do we have someone from the application who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Doyle. Currently live at 1311 Hodges Ferry Road in the city of Portsmouth, 23701.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share with us about your application?
The plan is to build the retirement home for myself and my wife. I'm going on 30 years in law enforcement. I get to retire this year, so we want to find a
Congratulations.
nice land with some water and be able to sit there and watch
Nice.
wildlife.
Any questions for the applicant?
I'm pretty familiar with the lots down at that end. I used to live in Scotts Landing. And you're talking about removing a whole lot of trees. Are you moving only ones that absolutely have to be
Yes,
moved?
ma'am.
Okay.
We've had 2 tree companies come out and look. There's about 95 little trees that are under 10 inches on the lot. There's 19 pine trees that are between 4 and 10 inches, not 4 and 10 and 14 inches, and then 29 maple trees that are basically about 10 to 12 inches. But until we figure out where we're actually able to build on this plot, I don't want to touch any trees, because we want to figure out the layout of the house, the footprint, what we're allowed to build on, and then shape the trees around the house so we can actually build it and still have trees.
And the privacy.
Yeah.
The privacy and the number of trees that were left in Scotts Landing was actually very commendable for the builders down there. And very few houses didn't have a lot of trees, only until after the Isabel.
Now, my wife loves to have her privacy, so
Yeah.
whatever we can leave, we want to leave.
Sure.
A landscaping mitigation plan will be required, and so they will have to do replacement plantings in the RPA for anything that's removed.
Okay, all right, thank you. I've read them, but sure, thank you. Thanks, you'll enjoy it down there.
Other questions for the applicant? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we recommend to town council for the approval with staff recommendations.
Second.
This is approval from the planning commission, not a recommendation to town council.
Fine with the
Oh,
approval.
we got it all tonight, huh?
Don't get giddy with power. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome to town.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is also a public hearing, a text amendment, Article 3.D.C, JBC Holdings LLC, care of Vincent Corolla, the applicant. Ms. Clary, what say you?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is seeking a text amendment to the Downtown Neighborhood Residential Zoning District in order to apply for a revised site plan for the project on the corner of Washington and James Street. This would be Article 3DC 31, waiver of maximum density. This text amendment would include the waiver of maximum density as an additional special use permit item. It would allow the applicant to apply for a new site plan, which would feature 4 detached single-family condo dwellings and 3 attached duplex condo dwellings. It would also feature sidewalks, making it easily walkable to the surrounding destinations, downtown, YMCA, and the library. The applicant would still need to apply for a special use permit for duplex dwellings, 0 lot line development, and a waiver of parking and loading. The current density for the DNR district is 5 units per net developable acre. Town staff recommends a robust discussion and then a recommendation to town council. Thank you.
Okay. As I said, this is a public hearing item. We will open the public hearing, and we do have one speaker signed up, Ms. Mary Harris. If you will come and, you know the drill, state your name and address.
Hi, good evening. I'm Mary Harris. I live on Grace Street in downtown Smithfield. I came before a while back to talk about our comprehensive plan to both the Planning Commission and the Town Council with the purpose of preserving the downtown neighborhood residential area, which was on the map to change in the original comprehensive plan, but it was saved. I am here tonight, and that was, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. I'm here tonight to state that I am against changing our zoning regulations at the request of a developer, and not as part of a full study or an appropriate of our, at the request of a developer, and not as part of a full study or as an appropriate zoning for a particular area. I understand that this developer is a good developer and does top-notch work. This is not the issue. We should not change our zoning ordinances to appease any developer, no matter how good they are or what type of build it is. The question you and the residents of this neighborhood, that includes me, must ask and answer is, what is the benefit to this neighborhood and the town for allowing a density special use permit? As a 32-year resident of Grace Street, I can't think of any benefit other than tax money, and that may not offset the expenses and aggravation to the neighborhood brought on by the high-density build requests. Developers know our zoning regulations as well or better than we do. They will push and ask for favorable conditions and ordinances because they want to maximize profits. However, your job as a planning commission is to protect Smithfield and our quality of life, not to enhance a profit-making developer. If you give developers a tool, they are going to use it. We owe it to our residents to fully understand the immediate and future impact of any changes in zoning. We also need to understand the position of the homeowners that live in this area. Have we done that? Have we surveyed or reached out to these residents in an effective manner before we consider this change? Many individuals are unable to attend these meetings or even are aware of what is happening in their backyards. It is incumbent on us and you to provide adequate information to the citizens. I hope that you will fully consider this and not just approve changes because the developer is a good developer, or because a few comments from a friend or a person you might know would think this is a good idea. Or in some cases, these people don't even live in the town. To this end, consideration of any change requires you to look into the future and see what it is the residents and taxpayers want. Again, not just, I talked to a few people and I think it's a good idea. We have several lots in our downtown area and land in this residential district that in the future could fall prey to developers that would want to maximize profits. You could be opening the floodgates to an investor, speculator, or a developer to apply pressure on the town by pushing for increased density. If approved, you are opening a path for other developers to ask for changes that are favorable and beneficial to them. I believe it is your job to look at what benefits the town would receive. As a resident and taxpayer who lives in this district, I am opposed to changing the zoning regulations in this district to allow for a special use permit request for increased density. Increased density, no matter where it is or where you live, changes the feel of a neighborhood and impacts its neighbors. In this specific case, this tool should not be available. We only need to look at the concerns and complaints from existing neighborhoods and even approved builds to know that this is an unpopular position with our residents. Some of you might think, oh, we can always say no because it's a special use permit. But if it is not a good fit, which I would state it is not, why provide a tool that you know you will deny? Sometimes more rigid rules may be for the best and may be the best solution. I didn't address the specific development, but I will talk about a little bit of the fact that it's pretty dense and there's not enough parking. We already have parking issues downtown, maybe not specifically on that roadway all the time. It sits across from our community college, it sits across from the library, and sometimes there's a lot of people parked along those streets. And that concerns me as a downtown resident, that we're not, this is just one build, but like I said, there are other opportunities in town with lots, or people have double lots that might sell part of their lot for rezoning, and
Your time has expired.
It is a Pandora's box that I'm afraid we don't want to open. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this matter? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Discussion among commission. What say?
I'd like a little bit more information. What was, when this property was approved initially for Mr. Luder, can you give me some details on how many units he had on that property?
There were 8 units.
And what
8
was his
lots.
density? What was our density calculation based off of him?
I believe it was approximately 2.688 acres, which gives a density of 2.97 for the 8 lots.
And our density as it's presented is 10 units over what denominator? .2.
I believe it's 1.2. I'm trying to get to the correct. 1.2 acres for those 8 lots.
So that gives us a density of 8.33,
Yes, that is correct.
okay?
I think this question came up at the previous presentation of this application. And the property was calculated differently. It was calculated as a whole. This is broken down by what's actually buildable instead of what was considered with the previous application, the one with Mr. Luter.
Correct. When Mr.
So the density is misleading.
That is correct, because when Mr. Luter came for this project, it had not been subdivided yet, and there hadn't been the installation of the Clay Street extension as well.
Yeah, I would say that current density is not misleading. Previously, as it was approved, may have been misleading because the existing structures were still going to be there.
But if you're going to judge one developer over another, and these improvements were inevitable, I'm assuming Clay Street, from my previous discussions last time we discussed this, the town was require Clay Street to be extended through, maybe? I don't know if that's the right word. The only variable in that is how much land was given up for the DFW there, for their parking lot. So I think it's very appropriate that we use a denominator of 2.68, which would give him a density of less than 5 units per acre, which would be in keeping. These units are smaller. They're more in keeping with what's in the neighborhood. This is going to be more affordable than what was proposed before in that sense. And the parking is contained within its own development. And I think it's only fair that we consider the property as a whole, because these things were going to be required of him anyways in that sense. And so I think the appropriate denominator here is 2.68, not 1.2.
Right.
Did the developer acquire 2.68 acres?
Originally, yes.
The current developer?
Yeah, he's buying the whole I don't know what's been deeded to the town and what's been given away, but it doesn't matter. If he had bought this originally and came with this proposal, it probably would have been passed because we would have been considering it at 2.68 acres.
Right, and in our previous discussions here in the commission, that was what was brought up to us, and that it was really only fair that we do consider the whole amount. I happen to live on Jersey Street, and I live second from the corner, but if you look at the next 3 houses, they are built right on top of each other. They don't have the the number of oh, you've got that. Yeah, they've got, what's the 0.26?
2.68.
Acres, 0.26 acres with 3 houses. And then if you go around the corner onto Washington Street, those houses are also built right together. There's not a whole lot of lot lines there. Even on Gray Street, some of the houses are much closer together than others. This is going to be built in the historic district. You can't build old houses, but you can make them look old. And actually, the number of units that he is requesting goes quite in keeping with the downtown historic district.
Well, I see that 0.26 acres is approximately 4 homes per acre, not 8 homes per acre. That's double what you're citing. And if you look at the elevations provided and comparable pictures beside of those elevations, those homes appear to be considerably smaller than what the elevations represent from what has been provided in this presentation.
There is more green space with this current iteration than what it was before. Right behind the Children's Center, there were 2 separate units. The only difference there is he is suggesting 2 attached units. Same number, but 2 attached. There's no more buildings. I don't believe there's more buildings in what's being presented tonight than what was presented in the other proposal. It's just that they're laid out differently.
There's 2 additional.
There are 2 additional?
additional units.
Okay, all right. And are they the ones that are duplexes, or are they detached? Well, it doesn't matter, there's 2 additional, doesn't matter. Okay.
When you saying 2 additional, you're saying footprint?
Correct. The original Washington and James project was for 8 units. This proposal is for 10.
Question I've asked that we haven't been able to get an answer to is how many more buildable square feet are we talking? Because the houses that were presented before were considerably larger. So we're still talking, if you do eight homes at 100,000 square feet and 10 homes at 90,000 square feet, we're getting less building space. But we've not been able to get that information because we don't know what buildings were actually going to be put on by the looters for that. But I'm saying that they're smaller buildings. I think they're more in keeping, and I don't think they're out of proportion. There's a ranch home diagonally across this that back up to the baseball field. Just down the street, the Polito's house is a very large home. You've got a Victorian yellow house down there. You go to the other side of the Children's Center in the topography. These buildings are not out of proportion to what's around it.
I don't believe that they are either. And I would hate for the term special use to be foremost in anyone's mind as a negative to this, because there's really not a negative that I see to this project as presented tonight. There's more room between the buildings. There is plentiful parking. The only time that's really a problem with parking is downtown is when there's a big event. There's always going to be that. We want big events. So there is going to be on-street parking because of those.
So my perspective on this is not the special use language. It's the density, and it presents a number of things. It's not clear that there's more green space, and there's certainly not substantially more green space.
No.
The parking, actually, by what's represented here, I see, it looks like 4 guest spaces and driveways that cannot be parked in. The developer at the last meeting said that this is great because people will park on the street, which I would argue that does not support the health and welfare of our community. And conversely, the previously proposed development had private driveways for every home. These mean driveways that individuals park in and on, their children can play in safely without worrying about other neighbors' traffic, and they can manage their own space to park in with less chance of conflict between neighbors. The preserved trees being jointly maintained, I don't see that as they list that as part of the proposed concept. So we leave it up to 10 people to decide how to maintain those instead of one individual owning them. Walkable within and around, it mentions additional sidewalks. Well, there's already sidewalks proposed on the previous development, so I don't see that that's a change to that. So I don't think that it's in the interest of the health and welfare of the community to change our zoning laws to allow a developer to increase the density of the property.
Not changing the law. Giving an exception, correct?
Okay, giving it
Yeah, an exception. So we're not changing the law. And I know people say it opens the door for other developers. Well, other developers still have to come before us if they want to have a special exception. This special exception doesn't become law.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that, but it also sets precedent and encourages other developers to ask for more.
Do we have a parking guideline for the downtown neighborhood residential? How many cars we have to, or parking spaces like that are allowed, or what the requirement is?
So for our single-family dwellings, we require 2 parking spaces. It would be an 18 by 18 concrete pad where they could park side by side.
Does the applicant have anything he wishes to say?
Good evening. My name is Vincent Carollo, and certainly thank you for this evening here. And about a month ago, we had same spot here. We kind of introduced James Street Park as a conceptual and hopefully as a commencement to where we are tonight. So I appreciate certainly the opinions and facts that are being out already. I reside at 22 Main Street, here in Smithfield. On behalf of JVC Holdings, we have taken some time to present James Street Park and certainly putting our best feet forward. I've had certainly pleasure working with Mr. John Hopke here from Hopke and Associates. As we started about a month ago and prior to that, we understand there's mechanisms to getting here and maybe commencement of so. And we would love to answer the questions and also give you the answers to the questions you may not have. So in saying that, I am here, and Mr. Hopke is here as well, and love to address the questions, okay? Thank you.
We're bringing up the presentation.
Is there a presentation?
Ms. Clary, do we still have the presentation of the previous proposal?
From Mr. Luter's project?
Yes, ma'am. Not necessarily for this moment, but that we could review in the event we table this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, so this is a video that kind of flies you around this part of the neighborhood a little bit. So it'll give you the sense of the density of the project. And it unfortunately doesn't show the entire neighborhood, but the attempt and what I think we achieved is a development that replicates the density that is already in the neighborhood. I heard earlier a comment that you want to be careful with the text amendments because you would like them to make sure that you maintain the integrity of the existing neighborhoods when you allow new development. This is kind of an interesting situation here where without the text amendment we're proposing, you can't replicate the density that's already in the neighborhood. Some of the lots that exist in the neighborhood are less than 4,000 square feet. That's less than a tenth of an acre. That's more than 10 units an acre. And so what we're proposing here, I think, blends well with what's already there. I think another feature of the design is that the homes are served by an internal alley. So there's a curb cut on Washington and there's a curb cut on Clay Street. And so there's only 2 curb cuts instead of, say, 6 or 8 24-foot wide curb cuts. So what that does is it makes a sidewalk that's much safer and also allows for on-street parking, which makes sidewalks and neighborhoods safer. Are you pulling up the whole slideshow? Okay. I think also one advantage to this layout that you just saw there is that the existing trees, we're not only protecting them, but we're kind of celebrating them, creating a park there around the trees that that's available for everybody, not just the people that live in this little piece of it. So it's sort of a contribution. It's not just green space for the folks that live there, it's green space for the whole town. Do you want to? Who's going to?
if I may, just piggyback on what John was saying here about the 2 trees there. As we purchased this property from the previous owner, it was mentioned to me, certainly as John said, seems to be an emotional attachment to these trees from back in history. And I certainly obliged to Mr. Luter that we'd keep them there and keep them healthy. But one of the things that we wanted to do was certainly, there's an easement agreement on that 50-foot from James Street, 50-foot back, which is a considerable distance. And, but, you know, it's a practical problem to have because the trees, these 2 trees, the stories behind it brings great character to the property. And as John said, I'd like to echo that. I think it's not just for James Street Park, potentially homeowners, but the town of Smithfield. And in the town of Smithfield, we've come a long, long ways. And being here 40 years in business with my family that started here, I've experienced it. And one of the things that we've noticed is that the pedestrian friendly of downtown neighborhood, there's a fabric, it's in it. And I think what I'm trying to produce here with James Street Park is to be part of that fabric and continuing. I understand the density, which way you guys lean on it, but you know, there's mechanisms involved from the town, and we're at this point, to certainly either interpret it, defend it, be for it. I understand, but I feel that in James Street Park development here, big picture, it's not just a win for taxes and revenues. It's not that. I think if you get 10 homeowners in there, that's wonderful. You get 2 more than 8, you know, I don't consider that density. I consider that 2 more families coming to Smithfield and being part of the fabric. That's how I feel about James Street Park. And I've had the pleasure to know a lot of people here, and I've had great direction on this project, John Hopkins especially. I think we've come up here with a presentation as certainly as a commencement to this. We know that there's procedures and etiquettes, and we'll certainly oblige to it. And I appreciate all that's been said. Ms. Harris earlier, I understood her view from that, but I hope they can understand mine as well. I appreciate it, and we'll continue answering any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Corolla. I think your plan is much more attractive and in keeping with what's already in the community in terms of your elevations that you've presented thus far, and I just think it's a really well-done proposal.
I agree.
Any other questions or comments about this application? Again, this is a recommendation to council.
And remember, this isn't on the project itself, it's only on the text amendment. He's still got to come back and make his application.
Yeah.
This is,
Right.
just so don't lose sight of what you're really voting on tonight, because it's,
I have a few more questions. You mentioned that the street parking is good and that it makes sidewalks safer. What is that statement based on?
A lot of history. Basically, when you have cars parallel parked on the street, you have a big chunk of metal that separates you when you're on the sidewalk from the traveling chunks of metal that are coming and going.
It's also planning data on street parking makes people go slower because of the cars on the street.
And children do not pay attention to driveways.
Right.
And when somebody's coming around a corner to turn into their driveway, they can be surprised by a child. It's happened to me more than once. Because kids are oblivious.
So should we outlaw driveways? And I'm not saying that,
No,
I don't
we
say that jokingly, but,
We should
you
outlaw
know,
kids.
concur. But I say that in, these are necessary elements of building homes. So, and your claim sounds anecdotal. I mean, without any, you know, truly factual representation of that. I've lived in a number of places throughout the country. I've suffered through on-street parking, and never have I said, I wish I could park on the street instead of in my driveway. Never have I said that. And perhaps people have. That is also anecdotal, me saying that. However, I don't see that as an enhancement. Also, the trees, you mentioned the 50-foot,
Can I disagree with your previous statement?
fair.
Because there is a lot of documentation on, it's the whole traditional neighborhood planning or new urbanism that you see. I sit on the design review board in Newtown and Williamsburg, which is a new urbanism development, modern development. But the residential areas are all based on having alleys that rear load the houses, and then the houses face onto the streets or onto pedestrian malls. And it really is delightful. It's sold out. And the neighborhoods are wonderful places just to be, and they're safe. And, there is on-street parking, but, more than half of the parking is accommodated by those alleys. And that's exactly what we're doing here, or proposing.
When I venture to Williamsburg, or maybe a more appropriate comparison would be Carytown in Richmond. And not only does the on-street parking makes you go slower because you may not know if you have space to pass between two cars. Main Street is such a way when it's full as well. That being said, that reduced visibility that you have because when you're making turns, so I'm not sure that, those are trade-offs of changes in speed for reduced visibility. You can't see people walking into the street between vehicles. It frequently happens on Main Street that somebody darts out between two vehicles. So without some a study, I'm not inclined to believe that or that it's appropriate for our town when we have alternatives, which is having the required parking requirement that currently exists for the town.
I would say one of the most delightful things about Main Street in Smithfield is the fact that you can park on the main street and the sidewalks feel safe for that reason. And it's just a wonderful place to be.
Many people who live there don't have driveways.
Yeah, but we can go back and try to find you some data.
It's something we talked about when we were doing comp plan review. I believe the consultant brought that up about on-street parking and making sidewalks and roadways safer. So there's data to be had.
Related to the trees, you said a 50-foot easement. Are you adhering to that 50-foot easement with this?
Scutler, I have here actually the easement, and to me, it's not only in black and white, but there are some issues there that we have to come to you to ask permission if we want to do something within that 50-foot. So be it me that's building these lots, and we're building these lots more regular shape than versus to the prior approval of Mr. Luter's development. Someone's coming to you, and if we need to put a sign monument out there or some hardscaping, it's going to be you folks given the permission of that. So there's a discipline, and I'm totally fine with that as I purchased the property, knowing the easement was there. Now, would I like to have control of 50-foot because I paid so much money for the property? Sure. But I understand that there's, again, procedures and etiquettes for this easement, and, I certainly oblige to it.
Was that a yes?
A long yes.
Any further discussion? Do I have a motion for a recommendation on the text amendment?
I will move that we send a favorable recommendation to town council on this text amendment.
Is there a second? All in favor? Excuse me.
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Thank you. The ayes have it. We will move this along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen. Next item on the agenda is also a public hearing. It's also another text amendment. Town of Smithfield is the applicant. Ms. Clary, what say you? What are you trying to do?
Yes, thank you. This is clarifying language for a text amendment to Article 10 for our internally illuminated logos on signs. This would allow the logo to be internally illuminated, for example, the small cakes. That would allow the applicant to have had the cupcake illuminated along with their sign. So we're just proposing to remove the "and" logos from the language. This will make sure that the background of the sign is still opaque. However, the letters and potentially the logo would be illuminated. We do suggest a favorable recommendation to Town Council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
When we discussed this before, when small cakes came to us, none of us wanted to say, you can't have your cupcake illuminated. So I think this,
All right, as I stated, this item is also a public hearing, so
Oh,
we will
sorry.
officially open the public hearing. That's okay. Do we have anyone signed up? Seeing none, anybody here who is compelled to speak on this item? Now's your chance.
Getting fewer people.
Okay. We will officially close the public hearing. Any discussion by commission?
I was a little confused about removing that text with the icon. Is this because of the problem we had with the cupcake application? Does this eliminate that problem?
Yes, that is
I
correct.
think what I'm getting at, I think that hinged on the icon having some colors, some odd colors.
No, the icon could not be illuminated. And so at night, it would just show as a black
Okay.
circle. What this would do, this would have allowed the applicant to illuminate that icon, including
Okay.
the pink circle along with the frosting and the cupcake border.
Okay, you said the pink.
I believe it was the pink outline.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought, I remember some commission was having a problem with the pink, or if pink was denied in the ordinance or something like that. It was loud colors or something
No,
that didn't permit particular colors.
I think it was just the illumination.
It was just the illumination. Okay.
That is correct. The
In
color
fact-
issue.
In fact, Dr. Pope at the time was trying to help the lady to get what she wanted.
But she couldn't make a decision because the owner wasn't here to
Yeah.
to
Right.
guide
Just
her to
representing
make
the
the
sign company.
acceptance.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now she could illuminate her icon with pink and green and any other color. Okay.
Are we distinguishing icon from logo?
Well, I mean, same.
We are not. Logo was previously in the ordinance. We are just removing the term logos.
I don't see why removing it changes anything.
That's why I was confused.
Because it reads, provided the background or field which the copy and/or logos are placed is opaque. We were
gotcha,
requiring
gotcha.
opaque logos. This
Yep.
would now allow them to be illuminated.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, all right,
Double negatives.
Okay.
yeah.
Everybody
Okay.
clear?
You still have sign review. I mean, you still get to approve.
Yeah. They still can't have 12 colors.
Correct.
Okay. Everybody clear? Do we have a
Clear.
motion?
Was there, two questions. I know what there was some, or I understand historically, some vape shops and stuff in town wanting to put up some garish signs.
It was not a garish sign.
I'm not disputing that. But could this lead to some garish signs? I also don't really understand, you know, it was written this way at some point for some reason, perhaps, unless it was just an error. So I don't understand the necessity of this if they have to come to us for review anyway.
So they would have to get a special sign exception. They would have to go through the process if they wanted to have their logo illuminated. Again, as the applicant and not the owner, she was not willing to make that decision. And so now the small cakes cuppery, at night, it just has a black circle. You can't see the cupcake. And so visually, it's really not ideal what Planning Commission wanted to see. This would fix that issue so that the applicant would no longer have to apply for a special use permit to have a logo illuminated. They could be illuminated on their sign.
Okay.
I think
But a naked lady is not going to be approved by us.
Basically, what happens is your sign company follows the rules in order to make the application. In order to follow the rules to make the application, you can't light up the logo. So they'll submit it and it comes in, and then they come up and they're like, yeah, we'd really love to have had, this lit up and so you can see our logo or whatever, but, so every time they come in, we're like, we'll go ahead and do it. But it's the sign people who are coming and making the application, it's not the business owner. So they've gone through and paid for the design, you pay for the sign, you pay for all of the engineering and everything that goes along with it, you've invested all your money, and then they come here and say, sure, go ahead and light it. Well, that means they've got to go pay for all the engineering, all the wiring, all the new drawings, everything for the design of the sign all over again in order to change it to what you would want to begin with. This allows them to design, follow the rule up front, and pay their money up front for the application, meeting the rule. So,
Okay.
so fixing the words allows your business owners to make a much smaller investment in their upfront costs for getting their sign.
The further background on this is generally speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't want white signs illuminated with them being so bright and blinding going down the road. We would prefer dark backgrounds with white lettering across the town, whatever your logo colors are. So when we looked at the sign ordinance and changed it, we wanted the background color to be opaque with the letters. So you light the whole box up, the background's opaque, but the letters are then lit. And we prefer those to be white. So it cuts down on just all the noise pollution driving down the road with everybody having white signs. So as when we opaked the background, that opaqued the logos. And so therefore, this is an exception around that. Example being Smithfield Electric, which is beside the Terminex building up in there. Their logo is a white sign with red lettering. Well, they didn't want to do a red sign with white lettering because that's not their logo. So a way to get around that is they could opaque the white and a red letter shine through so the light's not penetrating the white. The light's not penetrating the white background, but it's going through the red. So we really didn't want a lot of white signs around town, everything being white and bright as you drive down the street. So we prefer darker backgrounds with white lettering. However, the sign exception allows whatever they wish to do, but in order to get around all that brightness is the background should be opaque. And that opaqued out a lot of these logos is what happened, incidentally. That was the collateral damage.
Okay. So why would we not change the sign ordinance then to address that?
We just completely rewrote this. That's the whole point.
I know, but if we recognize we made an error in it,
That's what
That's what this is
That's what
correct.
we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're changing the sign ordinance. This is, Mr. Keller, this is kind of the hardest thing to write is a sign ordinance. It's really difficult, and because if there's so many moving parts to that, and they've just hashed all that out over months and months and months. But the problem is, and this is a great example, when you put things in writing and then you apply the writing to a real world situation, you come up with a situation that isn't what you really anticipated. It's kind of an unintended consequence that you really didn't want. And so all they're trying to do is fix that.
okay. It just says zoning ordinance, so it's not clear that that's,
Well, that's just the zoning ordinance. It's the sign ordinance is part of your zoning ordinance.
thank you. And then one more question, and this, again, leads back to my original comments on helping me with your wisdom as a new guy. So this says a proposed text amendment to Article, X of the zoning ordinance. And just before that, in Mr. Carollo's proposal, it says a text amendment to the downtown zoning district in order to apply for. So can you assist me in understanding why that one is a text amendment and one is not?
They're both text
These are both text amendments to the zoning ordinance. That is specific to the DNR. This is specific to Article 10, which addresses our signs.
Okay. So when I said earlier changing zoning ordinance, the statement was made that it wasn't, it was a special use permit, not changing. But so Mr. Carollo's application is requesting?
It's a text amendment to include waiver of maximum density as a special use permit item in the downtown neighborhood residential zoning district.
So it is in fact a change. If I opened a zoning amendment today and I opened it after this was approved, if it is, they would be different.
Correct. There would be that additional special use permit item for a waiver of maximum density.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Is
So I
there
make a
for
motion
that?
to approve as presented.
It's a recommendation.
A recommendation to the town council as.
Second.
Okay, it's motion and second to send a favorable recommendation to town council. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Any opposed? Thank you. We're getting so good at this, we thought we'd do it again.
If I may, Chairman. Just to clear this thing up with the sign, I think it would be easily understood if you changed the word background to the spaces between the letters. That would be understood, I think it would be understood better. The spaces between the letters, the ones that would be opaque.
That language is more
that would be
confusing.
opaque. You know, we're saying background. But it's actually the background is the spaces between the letters and the logo.
To me, the background is everything on the top, everything on the bottom, everything between the letters, and everything on each side.
Yeah.
It's,
Yes.
the whole thing
It's all inclusive.
is opaque, and then whatever you want to see, to read, comes through in the lettering.
Yeah, I think that's what I said, just a different way of saying it.
Okay,
I
so
didn't understand it that way, but
we're
anyway.
making a favorable
Just a different way of
recommendation.
saying it.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 11, also public hearing, text amendment, Article 2.W.2.A, Town of Smithfield is the applicant. Ms. Clary, what say you?
Yes, thank you. Back in July, the General Assembly changed the notice requirements. This makes it so that we have to advertise 3 weeks before, start the advertisement 3 weeks before the scheduled meeting. We can no longer appear in the times the Wednesday prior to the public meeting. This is just bringing our zoning ordinance in line with the new requirements of state code.
Very good. Again, this is an official public hearing, so we open the public hearing. Do we have anyone sign up to speak? Killing a lot of trees tonight. Okay, we will, anybody out there would like to speak to this item? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. This one I think is a little more straightforward. It's something we have to do to get in compliance.
Hopefully, the General Assembly will reverse this,
Yeah.
because it's caused a great deal of difficulty for lots of localities, and everybody's complaining about it. So maybe we'll get lucky and they'll change it. you'll be-
And cost, like in Virginia Beach,
Yeah.
we used to be able to advertise stuff in the Beacon, which
Right.
was much less expensive, and now you have to do it in the Pilot, and it's 3 times as much as what it used to cost us. Okay, any commission discussion?
No.
Do I have a motion for favorable recommendation?
Yes, I'll give you a motion for a favorable recommendation to town council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Item number 12, also a public hearing, text amendment, Article 2K, Town of Smithfield is the applicant. Ms. Clary.
Yes, thank you. This is just repealing Article 2K of the zoning ordinance in order to bring it in line with state code. Thank you.
Okay, this is an official public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up? Okay. Anyone in their audience wish to speak on this matter? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Is there commission discussion?
It's a no-brainer.
So I would like to make a favorable recommendation to town council that we approve as presented.
Second.
Y'all gonna let Tom and Bill do all the work tonight? It's been a motion and a second to make a favorable recommendation to council. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We're on a roll. I feel like we're on a roll. Number 13, correction to the zoning map, Town of Smithfield applicant, Ms. Clary.
Yes, thank you. Our official zoning map has been updated. This just includes annex parcels, along with any parcel that has gone through the public hearing and rezoning process. We are presenting just an updated map for reference that includes all of these new zoning designations. Take you.
Okay. This is not a public hearing.
Nope. You just need to take action to, this would still have to be approved by town council.
Yeah.
So I would make a recommendation to town council that we approve the new Town of Smithfield official zoning map as presented.
Is there a second?
Go for it, James.
All right, second.
Good job. Okay. It's been a motion and a second to make a favorable recommendation on the updated zoning map. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 14 is an entrance corridor overlay review and site plan. Smithfield Sidewalk Project, Isle County is the applicant. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you. Isle County, in coordination with VDOT, has prepared a sidewalk project for West Main Street. This is going from West Side Elementary School to just past Grace Street. It will connect to the existing sidewalk on Main Street. It will allow for a street-printed red asphalt pedestrian path in front of the Grange, which will be the future location of a bricked sidewalk. This project will install new pedestrian signal heads, signs, painted crosswalks. This would be on the northwest Surrey side of Route 10. It also provides a new 5-foot concrete sidewalk down Great Springs Road, connecting to the existing sidewalk on Quail Street, along with new crosswalks at Pole Road and Great Springs Road. There will be new entrances to the 7-Eleven that will also be installed. I will point out one other feature of this site plan is it will have new 2-inch service laterals to the existing commercial structures off Main Street that will have to be upgraded from their 1-inch service line connection. Thank you.
Okay. This is another eco review, so we're approving or not? Okay. Everybody clear?
Approving or not?
Approving.
Yes, approving or not.
But
Yeah.
it's your approval, it doesn't go to plan,
Yeah.
council.
Could you, oh, I'm sorry.
And to repeat, there's a new 2-inch water line?
Yes, because they are
To-
doing upgrades
to which one would
for the stormwater right there at the very end of Main Street. They would need to replace those service lines. The existing service lines, we believe, are 1-inch service line connections. They will have to upgrade it in order to meet our design standards to the 2-inch service line connection for commercial structures. They would then be able to push it down to whatever size water meter that commercial structure would need, but they do need to have those 2-inch water service line connections.
To which businesses?
My next question. Yes.
I believe,
The powerhouse and the,
no, it's on this side.
so the laundromat and the repair place.
It's right, those right on, there on that side.
What about the old Give Me Shelter?
If they have a 1-inch service line connection, then yes, it has to be replaced with a 2-inch service line.
And
For
the town
any of
is-
those
And the
commercial
town is
structures.
doing that, or the county is, whoever's doing the
Correct.
work, because that's part of their upgrade.
Correct.
Now, it's my understanding, I may be wrong on this, but I don't think Give Me Shelter has water.
I don't think they have
does either.
sewer. I'm not sure about the water
So if
connection.
they don't, will it still be stubbed out for that location for the future owners? Or whoever the current owners are, or whatever might happen
They'll
there?
have to start, they'll sell
Mark
that.
Hall owns it now.
I do think they didn't have sewer, they have a sink, I think. So they did have water, so it'll, there'll be a tap there, and
Probably had water when it was a gas station.
Well,
Well,
and there's a water
I
pump
think there's,
right out
I think there
front.
was just a sink in that
Oh.
back part of the building.
So I'm assuming too that the car wash, the other building across the street beside the car wash, the barber shop, all those have 2-inch lines as well, or they will be upgraded as well?
The work is not being completed on that side
So it's a
of,
separate main on that side?
correct, where
Okay.
they're not interfering with those connections.
Okay.
There's no sewer down there. That's another story, but there's no sewer at all. That's the only place left in town that there's no sewer.
The stormwater system down there, is that being upgraded at this time?
There are two projects. There's the sidewalk project, and then there's also the intersection project. And the intersection project does have a lot of stormwater improvements associated with it.
Is that being managed by the Grange? Or
No,
funded by
sir.
the Grange? And if it is or is not, are these upgrades going to be able to accommodate the Grange while we're doing these improvements?
This is an Isle of Wight County project for the intersection that's also being completed in coordination with VDOT. They are currently in discussions with the Grange to make sure that the projects can coincide.
Because there was some discussion during the Grange of these stormwater management systems down there would need to be upgraded if they couldn't handle the runoff, et cetera, but those studies hadn't been done at the time of the approval, so I'm assuming these studies are being done then?
Yes, sir.
That makes sure we're not going to put something in, then dig it up? Okay.
Don't laugh, it's happened before.
Indeed.
Other questions I have, I guess, when I look at these items of Kimberly Horn, and they're looking at this brick sidewalk that goes all the way in front of what would be the hotel portion of that frontage, it appears to get to the property line and stop and turn to concrete. Is that correct? Am I reading the
Yes, that is
diagram
correct.
correctly?
That is correct.
Is there a reason we're not extending the brick sidewalk all the way at least to the intersection to keep it consistent as you walk that distance all the way through?
To the intersection.
So where the Grange would stop, there's a little small field planted over there with trees and all to the right of that. Well, on Main Street, you're coming up to go out to the courthouse, there's a little field there. It looks like that's going to be a concrete sidewalk. Why would we not keep the brick continuing from the property line of the Grange all the way to the intersection?
That was the alternative bid that was arranged for that particular section through town council, that they approved that increase in material. Originally, the project was just to have the concrete sidewalk. The town opted to have that brick portion in that area.
Okay.
Is that brick or is that stamped concrete?
Currently, with this set of plans, it's going to be the stamped concrete. It will be replaced with the brick sidewalk.
That's what I was just gonna say. It's being done with the asphalt right now, so that it'll be replaced by the Grange to the actual brick
Right,
whenever the Grange.
right, but with all that construction traffic going in.
Well, which is it then? Because it doesn't exist now, so are they building it as stamped asphalt or?
With this particular phase of the project, yes.
This, yeah, the material list on here says this is stamped asphalt. The red asphalt
Yeah.
is what this is.
So has the owner of the Grange been approached to say, okay, stamped asphalt's going to cost $200,000 to put it in and brick is going to cost $300,000? And would the owner of the Grange be obliged to pay the extra $100,000 to upgrade before we put $200,000 in and then turn around and put $300,000 in? It would seem like the developer of the Grange would like to have some input on this in order to say, hey, this might be more cost effective to let me pay the difference of something that's already been budgeted for. It seems ridiculous to do work twice.
It does.
This is
We're
a-
planning, we're looking for
this-
the future.
this
It
is a-
seems ridiculous.
This is a county project.
But still,
I'm not
still the
saying-
county has a budget item in there and they would have to ferret that out. But Mr. Luter, the developer, may be interested in saying, look, I'll pay the difference in cost at this time while it's going in, if he so desires, or at least can he have the option to do that? Because it just seems ridiculous to do work twice. I mean, I don't like to do things twice, but I do it a lot, but I don't like to.
Yes, but if the Grange go forward, the roadways is going to change in this area as well. That would,
This is the change for well, part of the change for the Grange roadway change.
I thought the Grange came with their own
This is the
roadway plan.
sidewalk piece. We're doing the sidewalk and the roadway updates. It's the same.
So this is not the relocated Grace Street that would be with the Grange.
The Gray Street part, yes, but the intersection part.
The Grange come with its own road work, and it's different than this.
Right, the Grange project does relocate Grace Street. That
Yes.
would be the responsibility of the Grange development. This is an Isle of Wight County and VDOT-funded, I think it's a safe route to school project for the installation of the sidewalk. There is a second separate project for the intersection improvements at Main and 258 that the county and VDOT are also working on in this
So
area.
then would this infrastructure then be changed when that intersection is upgraded?
There is some reconfiguration with that intersection to provide more.
And do we have a timeline for the upgrade of that intersection?
They are at 60% plans. These are 100% plans, and they're ready to go to construction.
Boy, it seems really redundant to waste a lot of resources.
Dr. Faber, I think the idea behind this was they did the stamp asphalt with the idea that, because it gives the appearance of brick, and then with the idea that if the residential and commercial project goes forward, it can be retrofitted with brick on top. That's the idea, because the base will always already be there. So they want to do this now.
So it's not a tear-up situation.
So it's not exactly.
It
It's
just
not
seems
like you dig it up.
But one other thing, you made a comment. This is, what did you call it to the school thing? What was the term she used?
I believe it's a grant, Safe Routes to School.
Okay, but doesn't Isle of Wight County have a policy you can't walk to school?
Oh,
That would sound right.
Details.
Yeah.
They do indeed.
Yeah, all right.
That's,
Well, maybe they're working on a text amendment for that.
All right.
Again,
the school, I don't think the school board has anything to do with the VDOT approval. That's the comment on itself, I think.
Again, staff do recommend approval, just contingent on Isle of Wight County addressing just some remaining comments on the staff level.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
What are the remaining comments?
The biggest comment is the 2-inch. This plan still illustrates the 1-inch service connection. We are going to require the 2-inch.
Does this, okay. The county during this project is going to alter the water line.
No, it's going to be in conjunction with our Public Works and Utility staff.
Is the water line being disturbed?
It's the service line connections to the commercial properties.
To the properties, but not the main water line?
No, sir.
No, it's from the main to each parcel.
Okay.
Anything further?
No, I was just looking for a way. I mean, this would be a surprise cost to those businesses. And I was just looking for a way, if there was some kind of way to subsidize the county or someone while they're doing this work, to actually do that work. But it was just a thought.
Wait, this is going to be a cost to the businesses?
No, the county's installing the service line.
The businesses are not responsible to pay for the service line installation.
The 2-inch?
No, sir. This is a county project, and the county is disturbing their service line connection, and so they must.
So the county is
Correct.
installing and taking care of the cost of the 2-inch line to the
Right.
business? Oh, okay, okay, that's what I was concerned about. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay? Everybody clear? I'll entertain a motion. Don't make Tom do everything.
See, Tom, you're gonna keep on going.
He does it so well.
All right. I will make a recommendation
No,
that
you
we.
get to approve it.
Oh, that's right, we're just approving this one. I make a recommendation that we approve the plans as presented with county, or with staff comments.
And I would second that.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're getting the hang of this, okay. Item number 15 is a discussion item. Development on Turner Drive and Ben's Church Boulevard. Ms. Clary, you have a second?
Yes, thank you. Town staff have received a conditional rezoning request from Isle of Wight County. This is for approximately 17.5 acres of T-Pin 3201009. This is the parcel that abuts the proposed Wawa on the corner of Turner Drive and Ben's Church Boulevard. The rezoning would be general commercial to facilitate storage facilities, medical office, retail sales, general office, and restaurant. According to the conceptual plan, there will be 6 parcels. This will include a 2-story medical office building, a 3-story climate-controlled storage center. The property will be accessed by the connector road off the proposed roundabout and a full access intersection off Ben's Church Boulevard. According to the project narrative, this rezoning request aligns with the current Newport DSD future land use map, which identified this property as business and employment. This application was provided to the town for any additional comments, which are due January 20th. We do suggest a discussion and consensus on comments. Thank you.
Your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen?
And that would be the second tab in the PDF. It's the full packet.
Ms. Clary, would you check on page 7 under water quality impact assessment? Make sure I'm reading this grammar correctly. In the first bullet, it says that we will disturb any portion of the 100-foot buffer. Is that supposed to be a will not? Unless I'm just misreading it with double negatives and everything.
Isle of Wight, that's what I read as well. That's Isle of Wight's application, not the town's.
Okay, but is it saying they will disturb the 100-foot RPA buffer, or is it, there is no RPA buffer in this?
They did not check any of those items.
Okay, it just seems weird the way that that's written. One comment, Dr. Edwards has given me permission to talk about this, but he had approached me a few years ago about development at this property, and he had always expressed a little bit of an interest of figuring out how to connect his business back to Turner Drive in order to give his clientele better access to his business and not having to U-turn off of Route 10 to come back to his business for people coming from Carrollton. And what about people going to Smithfield? How do they exit his and goes back? He has expressed some interest about how his business might be able to be utilized in this type of development. And to me, they don't really have the road marked, but it's that center lane aisle that looks like it abuts his parking lot fairly easily. I think he would appreciate it, and I think it would be nice for them to consider, would they allow him to connect his parking lot to that little roadway so his clientele has at least access through this development some kind of way to access his business in a more safe manner than what's currently being done. So that would allow access from Turner Drive to come in for people coming in that direction, allow people to exit that way. And so I don't know how he would figure out how to contact these individuals. Does he contact the county? Does he contact the developer? How would he go about to say, is there a possibility to expand that road 20 feet to his parking lot? So it would be nice for him to be included, as he's been inquiring about this for some years, of how he might help.
Mr. Ritter?
I'm certain, or fairly certain, that there's a provision in the county code that requires connectivity as part of, in other words, to Dr. Pope's point, there ought to be a requirement that access, I'm assuming, Tom, you're talking about, it looks, I guess it's like adjacent to there's kind of a drive aisle that runs perpendicular to the Edwards property. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know if yeah, perpendicular. Well, yes, to his parking lot,
Yeah,
parallel to Route 10, correct.
It looks like it's got like a boundary line running down the middle of it. Is that what you're talking about? Is that the
Yes.
location? I'm pretty sure that they require connectivity between, new development is supposed to connect to existing commercial. And so I would think that would be something the county should require that anyhow, but it seems to me that's what the town would require that if wherever it's possible to connect one existing commercial structure to another for access, you make them do it.
Yeah, so would he contact somebody with the county?
Well, yeah, he needs to make comments too, but you get to make comments as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to make those for him.
Yeah. Well, the planning commission can offer that comment as well about connectivity to an existing commercial structure.
I think that's a sensible recommendation. I mean, weird clients of his, and it is a dangerous spot to get in and out of.
And it shows on here, but I think there ought to be a point of emphasis. You see where it touches the school?
Yes.
I
Yes.
was just gonna
All right.
bring that up too, which is
That's,
Road A.
that was always been, they've always said in the Sweetgrass discussions and then the access, this global traffic plan, that there's supposed to be a connection point for rerouting school bus traffic at that location. So it would seem to me that y'all would want to emphasize that as well, that that's critically important to have additional access to divert some of the school bus traffic off of Turner Drive through that, what they call Road A.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where they have Road A, they actually show a quad.
Because they've always said that's what they were gonna do, but
Where anything going out onto 10 could turn right,
yeah.
basically.
Well, there's supposed to be there's gonna be a light there eventually. That's where they're supposed to put the new traffic light at, because that's directly across from Road A is gonna be the entrance to Sweetgrass.
Oh,
So there's an opportunity to get a lot of traffic off of Turner Drive, which is not very ideal in the first place.
so there won't be a traffic signal at Turner Drive?
There'll be one at Turner and.
Oh,
Wayne.
okay,
There's gonna be
and
there's supposed to
Road
be
A, okay.
a new one right there at that Road A.
That Road A,
Yeah.
which doesn't look to be real close to Turner Drive, but it's hard to tell on here. It's there now. Oh, is there? Well, I did see that, but I didn't realize that's what it's for.
The only other comment I saw, not that I read all 600 pages of the traffic impact study, but I did pay attention to the bullet points of how they addressed each intersection coming back towards the town. And it looks like, it implied, I don't know if that is the case, but it implied that with this development that all those intersections turn to Fs. Is that because it's already an F and this is not? Or is it really generating this much traffic from this development that it makes every intersection from Turner Drive all the way back to Church Street to turn into F rating intersections? That's the way I read it. Maybe I misinterpreted it, but those were the bullet points where they talked about each individual section, probably 3/4 of the way through the document. But it was interesting that if this got fully built out, every intersection along Route 10 corridor back to town turns to a F intersection.
So I'm looking for it now, but usually there's recommendations for traffic improvements, and then it'll provide you the build-out, including those recommendations, and then what the level of service is for each intersection.
Yeah, sorry, I did not read this word for word. It was a lot of language. Overall, I think the project's good. This is the kind of development we need within the county. We need commercial development. We need stuff that's going to bring jobs. We need stuff like this, not housing developments. So to see something like this come through, I think is very appropriate.
But it's probably coming through because of the proposed, was it Sweetgrass across the street? So that because people are gonna need storage and a closer doctor and that type of thing. But it is needed, whether Sweetgrass happens or not.
The hospital is driving some of it.
That's true. They've got to good crew building that.
Anything else you'd like to include in the comments or discuss?
So if you go to 228 of the PDF, that's where it shows you the 2025 build level of service. That's where it starts with the overall level of service is that second column.
Say 228?
Starting on page 228 of the PDF. And that ends on page 233, which is the 2045 PM build level of service summary, which does not show any intersection with an overall level of service of an F. It does have Ben's Church Boulevard at Cypress One Drive in the PM as a D. A D level of service is an acceptable level of service for VDOT.
So it looks like 226, if those changes aren't made, they will become an F.
But if I was looking at it, it's not from just this development.
This is a master TIA for that
Master,
entire
and I was
area,
gonna say, this master
incorporating the
includes all the
Wawa.
Residential from
Right.
Sweetgrass and everything else is full build out.
And Tammy, does this include all the, the improvements that were just approved by the county, that whole, the roundabout and all?
Those were part of the
That's part of all
recommendations
of this,
in
okay.
this TIA.
Any other comments you'd like to include?
No.
Do you have what you need?
Yes, I have one more thing, if I may. It's not on the agenda. It's the elevations for the Mallory Point project, the sample elevations that were sent out for review. They are numbered, and so if there was any elevations that the Planning Commission wasn't in favor of, we can discuss it now, or you can send me an email letting me know. We also included the conceptual elevations that were provided with the rezoning. That is on the 3rd tab, and then the Mallory elevations are on the 4th tab.
Do you need an approval?
If Planning Commission is on board with what's submitted, we'll go ahead and continue to move forward. We just wanted to provide the Planning Commission the option of looking at the conceptual plan in comparison to the proposed elevations that we were submitted. I will clarify that the proffers do require that all dwellings will be constructed on a crawl space or a 16-inch raised slab with a full brick skirt. Slab on grade can be approved to accommodate handicapped accessible dwellings if needed.
And to rehash old stuff, Has the town given any consideration to how to, if they have to, I guess, how many build-out do they have to have before they can move on to phase two? And how are we monitoring that? And are we going to continue to look at occupancy permits? Or are we going to do something that we're more in control of in order to be able to make sure that they comply with all of whatever triggers they have to continue to develop?
So right now, we helped clarify that with the proffers for the Mallory Scott Farm. We tied it to site plan approval, which would have to come before Planning Commission to make sure that they had their right-of-way prior to receiving site plan approval. That would be prior to issuing any sort of zoning permits or certificates of occupancy.
For which phase? Two? Or
That
B,
is
or-
for Phase E and F, I believe. On the Scott's Farm side, requiring that right-of-way acquisition for that slip lane before they can move forward with designing the site plan for that phase.
Is there something that's in this first phase that says at 80% they can, once they get 80%, I don't know if occupancy is the right word, but 80%, doesn't that trigger for them to be able to move on to phase B?
No, but they're only allowed, I believe, 150 certificate of occupancy a year. Well, I'm sorry, 125 for each year. They can still design the site plan for the phase and be issued zoning permits. They just will not be issued certificates of occupancy.
But on our previous discussions, is that an enforceable
We will
thing?
monitor it for the Mallory Scott Farm. We would prefer future proffers, potentially craft the language in a more manageable way for town staff, either through zoning permits or various phases.
Are we taking some action on this, or are we just?
We're just discussing.
This is just a discussion if any of these elevations that you were not in favor of.
I'm not really in favor of any of them except number 15, which is the one on the crawl space. The others are just on slab. And I would have concerns about, I'm sure, the land perks and all that, but just across the street, there's such a problem with drainage in those people's yards. I would have
The
concern
building,
about this.
Ms. Smith, that's all shrink swell soil, and the building official's gonna make them do engineer. Unless they completely, undercut everything and bring in select fill, and they might still have to do an engineered foundation for each one of them. So they all have to be submitted to the county for approval for their foundations and all that. Because you're exactly right, it's all shrink swell out there.
Yeah. And it's just not as attractive. The slabs are not as attractive as being on a crawl space. I lived on a slab for 30 years, and when we got on a crawl space, I just didn't realize the difference. The floors are softer, everything.
Unfortunately, Ms. Clary clarified tonight that their offer is a raised, they can do a crawl space, but they at least have to do a raised slab, not an on-grade slab.
Sure, and I see that, and it does have to have bricking or something down the bottom. So they're doing it as nicely as a slab could be, I guess.
Well, that comes up as another issue. We say bricking, what does that mean to you?
Right.
An
Is it the
individual
actual
brick, or is
or
it a
that
stamped
product
brick?
that we've seen, yeah.
Yeah, for that, yeah.
Because
Brick panels.
because in Cypress Creek, it was a brick foundation. However, in the last phases, whatever the 55 and over housing they used not real brick, they used stamped items to create brick, which was not in the original things in there, but they had done that, and that's what went through. But, so the question is, if we say brick, does it mean brick, or does it mean brick-like, or brick appearing?
Is that something that we would need to specify?
So that's an interpretation, but
If you don't say actual brick, it's not gonna happen.
It's not.
Correct, yeah.
It's just not.
I don't remember the wording of the proffer, but I'm pretty sure we all just re-referenced it as brick, but I'm not sure if it was brick or brick appearing.
It states with a full brick skirt.
Okay, full brick.
Well, then I would say that's,
That's brick.
a full brick skirt is a full brick skirt. It's not a,
It's not a faux brick skirt.
it's not a faux veneer.
Okay.
Can't be lost in interpretation.
And the term full means 4 sides versus front only.
Huh?
Yeah, full, yeah.
Because full brick could be a half brick like on the DMV versus a full brick, whole brick.
Stop.
No, I'm just saying, they're a developer, they're gonna work it. To me, a full brick's a full brick, a real brick, the way we think of bricks.
Yeah.
There's no structural, there's an aesthetic difference, but there's not a structural difference. I would think. Because a faux veneer is gonna be completely different. That's what you're talking about over in Cypress Creek, right?
No, they used, when they poured their slab, I think their face was a stamped concrete, so when this concrete was vibrated down,
Okay.
when you pulled the stamp off, it came off as a brick look. Now, I didn't go up and inspect because that would be trespassing. But it looks from the road that it was stamped concrete made to look like brick, whatever they did on their raised slabs on those houses. That's the way it appears from the road. I may be wrong, and it's been a couple of years, or however it's been, 18 months, 2 years since some of those houses have gone in, but I remember riding back there thinking, wow, I thought this had to be brick, not stamped concrete brick on, well, I say stamped because I think it was done all with the monolithic pour.
I would say
But-
that, Ms. Clary can send a letter. The building officials always said that if we identify issues in the proffers that they're supposed to look for, that they would. So perhaps that's where we send them a memo that says, be mindful of the fact that the proffers say full brick skirt.
I spent about 4 years working in masonry, and I would never imagine something, if you said brick, it wasn't a brick that you pick up and lay. So I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of wiggle room with that, so it's probably
But
worth,
it's a half-inch thick and you stick it on.
well, if that's a cut face brick,
Yeah.
right? I could understand that as opposed to a stamped concrete brick. But it sounds like it's worth clarifying.
Okay. Anything else? You ready to move along?
Is the consensus that the planning commission members are on board with these submitted elevations?
Are we making a decision, or I thought this was just for review? Is there a decision to be made?
If the planning commissioners are all in agreement, I received about 69 elevations. I picked out the ones that I thought were not the best, with the understanding that if you would accept that, then you would certainly accept more detailed additional architectural features on the properties. So we were using this as a base layer approach.
So you want to know which ones we like and which ones we don't. Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
I lost it. I know.
So we are making a decision. Personally, I mean, just having seen it yesterday, received it yesterday, I think it would be more prudent to release all the images and table this issue. So if we have to make an actual decision on this, I don't see that there's any emergency.
The thought process behind this was what's happening at Cypress Creek with the conceptual plan versus what was constructed. We are trying to follow in line with what was requested, that we're providing the conceptual images, which is the third tab of the PDF, along with the proposed images, elevations from one of the proposed builders for Mallory Point.
So in the nature of that, it sounds like you're referencing maybe some unmet expectations at Cypress Creek.
Correct. There was discussion over the conceptual plan and what was finally delivered. We want to make sure this is our first opportunity to provide conceptual elevation, provide proposed elevations along with the conceptual plan that accompanied the rezoning application for the project.
So it would seem prudent to have those proffers and the images and ample time to review them. I mean, one day is really doesn't give us much grace to go back to the citizens, as we had to do with Cypress Creek, and say, well, we approve these elevations, they look great, but I had less than 24 hours with doctor practice in medicine, and the rest of you having your day jobs, I'm sure. We should take our full advantage of our ample time to review these.
It's just a simple decision, whether you look at the house, whether you like it or not. If you don't, just pick that one out and be done with it. If you can accept all these as, something acceptable to be built, then we're done with it. Going through each one, I mean, how long does it take?
My trepidation with that is that A1, A2, A3, A4, B1, B2 are all the same house.
They're just different finishes.
They're just a little bit
Yeah.
different finishes, a little bit different looks, little clip gable versus this and different porches. And I'm afraid that if we say we like A2 and B1, then all they're going to build is A2 and B1 and not do any other architectural variation. But
No,
it looks like it's all the same house done 7 different ways. I don't think I want the same house done 15 different ways in the neighborhood.
No.
To me, it would look like Orlando. At least what I see of Orlando from the sky.
Yeah,
But,
see, yeah.
but, so what I'm scared of is if I say, all right, I like B3, then they're not going to do any other variations of anything else when I think the other variations are appropriate. I just don't want to see a repeat, as we always talk about, every 4th house, every 3rd house, every 8th house, it looks exactly the same. So, but even if you have the same house, different elevation, it still looks the same.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some degree of
Well, yeah,
variability
yeah.
that's in there, and I don't remember what he proffered, but I feel like it's every 4th house is sort of the standard that everybody's done.
I seem to remember him proffering that the houses would be reversed. There wouldn't be any two, in the same span. Might be across the street and down 3, but, yeah.
So,
But wouldn't it be different? Wouldn't the buyers have different preferences to choose from
well,
these houses?
it depends if he's going to build it himself and build what he wants and say, here's what I built, do you want to buy it? Or is he going to use an empty lot and they sell it off as a custom, semi-custom home, or however that's done? It depends on the developer.
Yeah.
But he doesn't specify that. If the housing market is so good, he's just going to build until it slows down, I would imagine. And then he would get more picky and allow you to pick out what you wanted.
Forgive my newness on this, but I am attending the Certified Planning Commissioner's course this month, which I'm sure many of you have, but I did go to the newly elected officials conference last week, and you made the statement, do we like this? And one of the things that they covered there as it relates to Planning Commission was Planning Commission is not an emotional decision. It's a zoning decision. It's a appropriateness for the character of the district or what have you. So I guess, from the email and just the nature of this, like I'm not really understanding that. Are we looking at these 812 houses and determining what, they're going to be one of 10 designs, and by saying we like it, or
It's very subjective.
is there
You may like one that I don't like, and vice
exactly.
versa.
So is there some substantive ground that is in the proffers that we can look at the proffers and look at this home with the proffers and say, okay, well, this one looks like it meets the proffers, but
That's the conceptual elevations that are provided on the third tab. That was what was proffered. It's the craftsman style and traditional style.
So there's no,
There is no proffered condition requiring a variation of styles within the development. The proffers address the heated living space along with the materials and then the crawl space or the raised slab.
none of tab 4 looks like the first two craftsman style single-family elevations. So I guess, I mean, were there words along with the pictures?
No,
In the
it's
proffers?
just in substantial conformance with those conceptual elevations.
So where was it whole brick then? Because that's
No,
words.
that's in there. That's in the
Foundation.
proper.
Okay, so there are words in the proffers.
Is it reasonable to expect all the customers that go in here and buy a home is gonna buy the same home? Is that reasonable to expect that?
That's not what they're talking about.
Right, he's wanting,
Well, here's the problem. They're giving you a set of drawings they're saying, this is what we want to do now, but it doesn't really look like what we told you we were going to do. And they're asking you collectively to approve those all tonight and say, I like those. And that's, I don't see how you can do that.
Thank you.
I agree.
yeah, so,
And so, is there do we have a deadline here?
No, these were just submitted.
Well, okay, but that's, maybe they need to show up and say, this is why we want to do what we're doing, instead of y'all trying to figure it out on your own. Because that's, I mean, if it's the craftsman style, that's not what they submitted, right? Well, I'm not, maybe they need an architect to stand up here and explain to us, to you collectively, this is why this is consistent with what we told you we were gonna do. You said they gave you 65 or 69?
Correct. They're not planning on using all of them. Those were their standard elevations for their projects. Again, we picked out the ones that we felt were least in conformance with what they had submitted, and to consolidate it down to those 24.
You least in conformance?
Correct. So
So
for
you gave them these are the worst?
these are, yeah, that is,
Well, they know to see the good ones.
Yeah.
Because I might think there's another one that's worse that you
Yeah.
didn't pick out.
yeah.
So I would call all of these,
Is it possible for a comment from the outside?
That's up to you, but really not.
not really, no, sir. It's just for our discussion. It will come up again, I'm getting a feeling.
Yeah. And I would like to see the
And then the-
elevations that they actually submitted first, you know, or proffered first.
Well, this is it, isn't
Well,
it?
that's it.
I'd like to
That's
see
it,
the
right?
good
That's
ones.
tab
Said
3.
these are not in conformance.
Tab 3 is.
Tab 3.
Tab 3 is
Tab
what
3 is
they
what they
proposed.
actually,
correct. There were some that have.
and I'm looking at tab 3, and I see a lot of those on the proposed elevation I would like better than the ones on tab 3 that was proffered.
Tab 3.
Yeah.
We've got that, which is 1 to
I
8.
agree, Charlie.
Yeah.
This one, which is
The
20.
ones proposed, they look a lot better than these.
But
Yeah.
like Tammy said, she picked up
Right.
the worst.
Well, I know, but picking
I
out the
agree.
worst is not
I
a good
wouldn't
way
buy
for you
any
to
of
decide what you like.
Because these are the first elevations that they have submitted. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. First
Okay.
elevations from one builder.
Thank you.
I'm sensing that you all would like to see more of what
We
was,
should get the builder in here and
Yeah.
talk to us.
since you all want to see more of these more complete package of proposed elevations, so do I have a motion that we table this and get more information, bring the developer in, whatever your pleasure is?
Yes.
Second.
Well, can I make one more comment? In Cypress Creek, there's many different styles of home in that development from the the 30 years it took to develop it. The styles changed over the decades, and there was never did they come before us to ask about changing the styles, nor did they go before the homeowners association to ask, can they change the styles? It was just done based on developer and builder, period. We didn't have a discussion on what style homes went in. It's just when they went up, There was
But that
never a
was-
discussion on the
But that
style
was
of
because
home.
that was approved by the county, and it didn't involve any approval whatsoever about the way anything looked. Mr. Rosser, and I know this for a fact, every house in that subdivision was built out of brick until he turned over control to somebody else. Because he was never gonna see a house that wasn't made out of anything other than brick in that subdivision. So he
But I
was
think
a-
that, to Dr. Post's point, it was phases, I think it was phases 6 and 7 or something, that the new owners just changed all the designs, and they didn't come to us and ask us.
The town never had any authority over that.
There was no proffering of a design or
No.
anything like there is with
There
this.
was never any review for architectural elements ceded to the town by the original zoning.
Right,
So
right, I agree. But as to his point, they didn't come to us to ask for approval of what they were building.
They didn't have to, that's what Bill's
E-
saying.
Exactly.
But
So-
do we have to for Mallory Point?
Yeah,
I mean,
they offered.
Yeah,
it.
Yes.
that was the
Yes.
proffer.
Okay.
They voluntarily proffered that this is, this is what we want to build, and we will do it in substantial conformity with this. And so it's up to you to determine, to Mr. Cutler's point, is it appropriate based on what they offered?
But the other comment here is, things are changing. They're changing. This is what they had when they came to us for approval. The years since then, wouldn't you expect form and such to improve development? Wouldn't you expect that? I would expect it. Change? Wouldn't you expect change?
I would expect change for the better,
Well,
not
and
change
that-
for the
and
worse.
and that's where you stand. I mean, are these better? These new ones that's presented to us, are they better than what was in profit on tab 3? That's a simple question.
That's a subjective question.
It's subjective, simple, subjective.
Well, and don't forget, you haven't seen all of the proposed elevations either, so.
Well, how many do we need?
I would say that if you
We got
liked
24
tab
here.
3 when it was originally proffered, you know, if that's your style, then you may not like anything in tab 4, you know?
Mhm.
But if there's 3 times as many more to look at, then, or 4 times, then, because we're not seeing any of the, and maybe have they not offered any multifamily or townhouses yet?
No, it's
Not yet.
This is only for Phase A, Section
single family.
1, 2, and 3.
So we kind of had a motion and a second to bring this back?
Before you do that, can we also, with the additional images, get the proffer verbal statement with that?
The proffer statement? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And can we get all images sent? And if they have additional to send, but for next meeting, everything as well? And what if they wish to add more? Because are we deciding this for Phase A, or is this Phase everything?
It's unknown at this time. This is one builder. We know, I believe there's 2 other builders for Phase A. We're not sure what builders there will be for the additional phases.
That could all change.
So what you're asking for now is a statement, a proffer, addressing the variety of the buildings
No.
in any given area?
No.
No? You're not asking for a variety of buildings?
It's not a proffer, Mr. Bryant. The proffer's already made. It's up to, they said that they would build houses in general conformity with the elevations they submitted. And now they've submitted some, only you've seen some, but not all. And it's really up to you to determine, is this appropriate or not? Do you agree that it's okay? Are they living up to their proffers or not? And it's pretty hard to determine that if you haven't seen everything. And I'm not so sure that the builder ought not to stand here and explain to you what his ideas
I
are.
agree.
I would also share that on the campaign, in the campaign process, Mallory Development was much talked about by the citizens, mostly in dissatisfaction. And our future contributions to making this as good of a neighborhood as we can should certainly be worth our time.
Okay, do we need a motion, or are we good just to bring this back? Okay.
I thought somebody made a motion to table it. Did we not?
A motion was
I mentioned
made.
it, and someone said they seconded it.
Okay, all right, I make the motion that we table this, bring it back, ask the developer to come in and let us review all of the images.
Second.
Second that, or James will.
Okay, somebody seconded it. All in
But I
favor?
thought there was also a statement to make certain that the same house wasn't built continuously,
That's not what we're talking about right now.
That's what we're talking about.
but that will come up later. Is that how that's gonna come up later?
That statement is not included in the proffer statement.
And you're not asking for it to be?
That ship is
The ship has sailed.
I'm sorry?
That ship has sailed.
The ship sailed.
Okay.
Well, but you still have some, you can't, if they come in and they ask for a zoning permit and they want to put the same house 4 times in a row, she can say no.
Okay, that's what I want to clear up.
Right.
That
But
seems
that's
kind
not
of
what,
concern.
that's not what we're talking about now.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to table this item. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank
Gonna
you.
make one more comment.
Sure.
The, obviously, this will be on public record, right? Because it's our, what we need the public to do is to go in and review the plans and come in at the public comment section and say, we looked at these plans. If it's that important to them about the development and all of that, this is their say to
Right.
say what goes into this. And so we need the public input.
Tell us what
to-
you like, tell us what you
They
don't.
need to come in the public comment section and say what they like, what they don't like based on the submitted plans.
And that's true, but ultimately this decision is yours.
It is. But if they want the input for us to hear them, this is their venue in which to do that.
Just for clarification, you want the proffer statement and all images, and then tabled until the applicant is ready to come before Planning Commission?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe so. Okay. Next item is approval of the November 12th, 2024 minutes.
Madam Chairman of the Planning Commission, I recommend that those minutes be approved as presented.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
No, second.
Been motion and second to approve the November 12th, 2004 minutes as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We also need to approve the December 10th.
And I have one minor correction, so I recommend the December 10th minutes be approved as revised and corrected.
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and a second to approve the December 10th minutes as revised. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else for the good of the order, ladies and gentlemen? Then we are adjourned. I can't reach the gavel. Give me the papers. Thank you for your time and attendance.